It's supposed to actually be a 1-to-1 size, so in theory I should be able to fit this inside of Soundwave and close it off. So there he is in all his glory, Transformers Legacy United G1 Soundwave. I'm going to spin him around a few more times and then try and make him hit a T-ball. It's going to be hilarious. Hello legends, I hope you're doing well. So in one of my last videos I said this. You eject the tapes, they pop out and these transform as well. I mean, this is about as 80s nostalgia as you can get, and I'm bummed out that ever since then, I get it, like kids don't know what cassettes are and whatever else, but I'm kind of bummed out that they haven't, for the most part, ever returned Soundwave to his boombox youth. First off, I meant roots when I said youth, but I was wrong about the whole thing actually, and some folks in the comments actually let me know that. When I made that mistake, all I was really trying to do was express my love for the G1 Soundwave. I think he might be one of my favorite figures, which is why I have him boxed here. As you can see, the box is somewhat beaten up. In fact, the top of the board is clipped, but for the most part, it's still in pretty good shape. The labels are still on the back, and I'm just really happy to own it. But enough about the box itself, let's focus on Soundwave. As you can see, I actually have two G1 Soundwaves, and you can probably imagine why I keep the other one in the box and have this one out. The other one seems to be missing a few parts. I think he's also missing a head. So he stays in the box and this guy stays out. And as I fiddle with him a bit here, I'm reminded of another mistake I made in the last. I called him a boombox, which he's clearly not. He's a cassette player, a micro-cassette player, in fact. There was a boombox, that was Blaster, as you can see right here. This particular one happens to be a reproduction, and I really can't stand those, so let's get that one out of here. Anyway, that's what Blaster looks like, and he was a boombox. Soundwave is a micro-cassette player. That's, of course, a fairly important distinction. Even though he looks like a cassette player, like a Sony Walkman, the size of the tapes would actually be closer to micro-cassettes like this one I have here. They would be used more commonly for voice recorders, things like that, or answering machines. Smaller tapes, not something you would normally store music on and throw in a Sony Walkman. And in fact, as people have mentioned in the comments, it's supposed to actually be a 1-to-1 size. So in theory, I should be able to fit this inside of Soundwave and close it off. So I'm going to make a few attempts. It looks, in theory, like it should fit, and I'm doing my best to get it in there. But it's certainly very fiddly. Now, I don't know how much this has to do with the age of my Soundwave, perhaps, but because in general, we know the Transformers, the cassettes that came with them, were also notoriously kind of tricky to get in there, but I just can't seem to make this tape fit properly until I just kind of jam it in there a bit, like that, and that's not the best either. It won't actually close, and it gets kind of trapped in there, so probably going to take me a bit of time to get that out of there. So I don't know, I would call it inconclusive. There's probably videos of people actually getting it in there properly, and maybe it does fit, but he's not really fitting in mine. In fact, I might never be able to get this cassette out of here. I might just have to leave it in here. But I don't really want to do that, so I'm going to do my best to tug it out of there without breaking the whole thing. I was able to free it with a good hard yank, and then in an attempt to stick a Laserbeak back in there, found me kind of struggling a bit as well, although ultimately he does go in and it does close up properly when I have Laserbeak in. But just to look at the size comparison between Laserbeak and the mini cassette, they look fairly close, but I think the mini cassette might be a little bit wider in parts, so that could explain part of the issue. But again, at the same time, as you can see, it's a bit of a struggle just to get Laserbeak in there. So, inconclusive, but in theory, if everything was fitting just right, and this wasn't an older Soundwave, perhaps the micro-cassette would pop right in there just fine. But enough of those silly tests, on to the main event. I said there was not a new Soundwave that turned into a cassette player, and I was wrong. And people pointed that out, and I'm so glad I was wrong. Somehow I missed, I believe there was an Earthrise Soundwave that transformed back into a micro-cassette player, and of course there's this Legacy United that does it as well. And once I found out, I had to order him right away and check him out, and I'm very glad I did, because he is just absolutely fantastic. Just look at this box art. I mean, the box art is really cool. You see the micro-cassette player there, super happy about. We've got Buzzsaw, Ravage, and Rumble there. Excited to get those guys out and check them out. But again, look at this box art. Isn't that crazy? That's just absolutely fantastic. I love this 40-year anniversary box art, and there's Soundwave on that side, and everything just looks really cool, vivid, and colorful, and super happy just to add this to my collection. So there he is in all his glory, Transformers Legacy United G1 Soundwave. I'm going to spin him around a few more times and then try and make him hit a T-ball. It's going to be hilarious. And here's a little size comparison with the Legacy United Soundwave and the original G1 Soundwave. G1 kind of hulks over him a little bit. He also has a bit of trouble standing up straight with his back, but I think a lot of us who are pushing 40 or over can relate. I did try out the cassette door, and it pops open nicely when there are no tapes inside, but once you do stick Buzzsaw or Rumble or any of them into the cassette door, it becomes a bit more of a struggle to close, and it doesn't pop open as nicely. Now maybe with a bit more work getting the tape to fit in there a little better would work better, but I couldn't really make it work. Micro cassettes, of course, absolutely will not fit. They're simply way too big. As for the 3 cassette tapes you receive in the package, I have to say I think Rumble is my favorite. I love the blue and purple collar scheme. I think he makes a really cool looking robot, and with these accessories he just looks like he's ready to take you to Pound Town. And Buzzsaw is just what you expect. He's okay. I don't think I like him as much. In fact, I think I prefer the original G1 Buzzsaw to this one, but again, nice, bright, vivid paint job. He transforms fairly easily, and he looks pretty cool. So I can't hate him. And rounding it out, we have Ravage, who's just kind of a garbled mess, just dark black and gray, and it really takes a lot of work to make him look pretty cool, and I'm probably not going to put a lot of work into that. I'm probably going to fold him back into a cassette and maybe never transform him again. I think he's the one that can live inside Soundwave. But here's the full team together in all their glory, and I have to say, on the whole, this package is just fantastic. I'm so happy that there are in fact modern Soundwaves that are the micro cassette player. It's such a nostalgic throwback. It's so cool to see, and I think it's kind of always what he should have been. They have made really cool looking robot Soundwaves since then. In fact, the Siege Era one was great, but I just didn't like the aughts, and this is just really cool to have this back. So I just have to say I'm really happy that the last video, 1, did so well, and that 2, because of all the wonderful comments, I learned so much just reading your comments. And particularly, I learned that this guy exists, and I was super happy to actually be able to pick him up for myself. So thank you to everybody for commenting on that last video, and thank you for watching this one. I really appreciate it.